What's going on, everybody? My name is Ben Chiriboga. I'm the head of growth at Nexel. Nexel is a matchmaking platform that helps lawyers connect and match with other lawyers and help build out their referral networks. So today, I'm really excited. What I want to do is share with you a really interesting framework that we at Nexel have used to grow pretty quickly. And it's probably a little bit of a counterintuitive way about thinking about growth. A non-data driven, what I call psychological way to actually driving growth. So let me go ahead and share my screen, and we can go ahead and get started. So just by way of background to sort of set the stage here, before I started running growth for legal tech companies, I was a practicing lawyer, in fact, a litigator, where I would get up and basically present and persuade juries. And before that, I was, in fact, a biology major, during which time I studied a lot of neuroscience, basically the way that the brain processes information and the chemistry underneath it. And it's during this time that I really developed this fascination with how the brain works and how the brain makes decisions. And I've carried that background all the way with me from really from college into being a litigator, into now marketing and growth. So today's presentation is called Stop the Logic, the Lost Secret to Driving Change and Being Persuasive, Being Rediscovered by Today's Science, and how you can really drive growth, innovation, whatever else that you want to do. So today, the usual story is that you can persuade either by strict logic or on the other side using emotion. And yet, despite those two beliefs, it still seems like it's harder than ever to get really people to go where you want them to go. If this sounds like you and you're tasked today with driving change, either in a sales role or a marketing role, really what I want to share with you today is a technique and a tactic and strategy that you can immediately start to implement. The funny thing is that you've known this strategy your entire life. In fact, you use it every single day of your life. You just probably don't know it. And in fact, this strategy has been behind some of the largest changes in the world today. So what is it, you're probably thinking? What is this thing that I use every single day, but I don't really know what it is? Well, when I show it to you, it's probably going to be surprising, and you're going to start to see it, how it influences everything you do, every mood that you go through, every decision that you really make. So what is it? Well, before I get into exactly what we're talking about, I want to tell you a little bit about how I sort of rediscovered it myself and the moment that it really clicked for me in a significant way. So whenever I turned 30, I decided that I wanted to do something else, quit being a lawyer. Like most people, I left my hometown and tried to reinvent myself. In my case, I moved up to New York City. Of course, the problem is that New York City is very expensive, and very quickly I started to run out of money, and I needed to find a way really quickly to start to generate new income. I wasn't a lawyer in New York, and so I couldn't make money based on my old skill set, and I was basically trying to transition into marketing and growth during that time, but was really struggling. That's when I found this one key secret that I'm going to share with you today. And it's using this one secret that helped me get my first client, which turned into a second client, which then, of course, turned into a third client. Fast forward to today, and today I'm the head of growth at Nexel, a fast-growing legal technology company, and we're using this company to grow pretty quickly and pretty exponentially. So what is it? Well, the answer is stories, but not any type of story. Stories are some of the most powerful vessels that you can use to really persuade your customers and clients to drive conversions, take the next step with you. And the reason is, to go back to my background in neuroscience and biology, the reason is because storytelling does something specifically to the neuroscience and the neurochemistry of your brain. It is no stretch of the imagination to basically say that your brain loves good storytelling. It's not also a stretch to say your brain was built for stories. Today, researchers in neuroscience and behavioral science are starting to understand how much storytelling actually affects the way we understand facts and really understand the world and make decisions. That's because stories do something very specific, which is lowers our oxytocin, increases our oxytocin, and lowers the cortisol. Oxytocin is known as the cuddle drug, and it makes us more empathetic and more receptive to change, while neurologically, driving down the cortisol. Cortisol, you probably know, is the stress hormone, and it really elevates our resistance to change. But today I want to talk about a very specific type of story, and that is what researchers are learning to be a core feature of how human beings actually understand stories, which is we understand stories through characters. And so what I want to share with you today is something that modern science is proving about stories with characters that leaders have always known. And that is that human beings love to be told stories about change, but more specifically, that our brain is built to understand facts through stories. But the real challenge here and the real application is a secret type of story framework that's been proven to work over tens of thousands of years. Something that combines storytelling with our love and fascination for characters. So today I want to share with you a specific story framework, which is called the hero story framework. This story framework has been used from ancient Greece and their tragedies all the way up to today to tell stories about Buzz Lightyear, Toy Story, Pixar, Disney, and even Marvel comic book characters. And that is the hero story framework. Now, some of you are probably familiar with the hero story framework, but if you're not, this is the basic background, and the source of this is something called StoryBrand. But let me break down for you exactly how the story framework works. And I'm going to do it by a very familiar plot in a very familiar movie called Star Wars. In Star Wars, you'll remember there is a character. His name is Luke Skywalker. And when you meet Luke Skywalker in the first half of the movie, he has an external problem. He's abandoned. He feels isolated on Tatooine by himself. He lives with his aunt and uncle, who of course and he feels like there's something big missing in his life. Of course, that big thing turns out to be something really big. Of course, in the first act, he loses his aunt and uncle, which really sends him off on his journey, his hero journey. He then meets a guide. His name is Obi-Wan Kenobi, who teaches him the way of the Force, who gives him a plan for how to really solve and a skill set for really solving his problems in the world. Eventually, outside circumstances push Luke Skywalker into using this new skill set, the Force. And in Star Wars, he uses the Force, of course, to become part of the rebels and destroys the Death Star with 2 blasters in his fighter jet. And you can see here that this simple story framework really helps people understand, and is very character-driven. So today, I want to show you how you can really make a simple shift in how, and the order and how in which you communicate can really change everything for you. Today, many people in their marketing, in their sales, are simply calling the hero to action, the famous call to action. And what is decidedly missing here is the backstory. The backstory is so important for people on how they should understand why and who they should actually choose. Backstories basically create this elevated sense of oxytocin in the brain and lower your resistance to change. And the key is building stories where you, as a SaaS platform or a company and a business, play the role of the guide, while your character is, of course, the prospect, the customer, or your client. By painting a real story about how he's going to go from how they're going to go from where they are to where they're ending, you can really start to put your call to action in a framework. And that's what good marketing does. Good marketing paints a story and can use the hero story framework to lead up to the cause of action. One of my favorite quotes is Robert Kennedy, who says, progress is a nice word, and in some ways we're all trying to push progress forward, but change is its motivator, and change has its enemies. My point today with this presentation was to simply show you that while change is hard, it's not impossible. And one tool that you can use today is this idea of this hero framework, to really paint a picture about how and where your prospect is going in a way that makes sense, and in a way that actually coats your call to action in context. At the end of the day, the story of humanity is a story of change. Make no mistake about it. By putting your call to action in the context of an actual story, you help your prospects really start to understand where they are going based on where they're at today versus where you're going to take them. So I want to end today with this idea of circling back to this idea about whether or not it was emotion or whether or not it was science that really is going to motivate change. Well, my answer is that it's both. However, it's all within the context of stories and better storytelling. Human beings need facts to rationalize what they're doing. They need to be motivated by emotion. And the best way to put facts and motivation together is in the context of stories and story frameworks. We have known this for tens of thousands of years. It has been true for tens of thousands of years, and it will continue to be true for tens of thousands of years. And one last surprise before I go. If any of this resonated with you today, just know that I use the hero story framework to tell you the story about the hero story. I told my story about moving up to New York in the context of a hero story framework because I know it would help you empathize. And I told the story about where you could go by using the hero story framework by virtue of using the hero story framework. So if you want to learn more about storytelling in general, or just tap into some of my growth tips, be sure to go over to legaltechgrowth.com. It is a general marketing and growth website with specific applications to legal tech and that burgeoning industry. Thanks so much for the time. I hope that this was useful. If you have any questions, you can always reach out to me at Ben Chiriboga on most social handles, or head over to legaltechgrowth.com and sign up for the newsletter to stay informed. Take care. I'll talk to you soon.